Hello, thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how to add building restrictions to your Civilization 2 Test of Time scenario. You're not going to have to know any coding for this because we're going to use a code generator that I've written, so all you're going to have to do is cut and paste, or copy and paste I should say. So to begin with, we're going to need to choose a scenario to do this with, so I'm going to use a Test of Time conversion of Age of Imperialism. This is a popular scenario and also has a number of pretty natural restrictions to implement. So you would download the scenario, extract it just as you would if you're getting ready to play it. I've already done that, and I have it here in a folder. So the next thing you would do is you would go to my Lua Template repository, and you would click on this green code button and download the zip file. And I've already done that. And then you would extract it, and I've extracted it here. The folder will be something like Lua Template -main, and it'll have all these template files. There's a lot more here than just the code that we need in order to implement building restrictions or production restrictions, but you don't have to worry about that. It'll just be around. So the next thing you want to do is you want to, if you already have events in your scenario, if you have what I call legacy events that are in the old macro system, and so you have an events text, you're going to rename this legacy events.txt, and the scenario template will interpret them into Lua. And you have to rename it before you do this next step, because there's an empty events.txt file that we're going to copy over, and you don't want to lose it. I should say that if you're using this on a scenario that you didn't just download off the internet, you should create a backup just in case something goes wrong. So the next thing you do is you copy everything that you just downloaded from the Lua template, and you paste it right in. After you've done that, you take your legacy events.txt and you move it into the Lua trigger events folder, and you replace what's already there, because there is just an empty file. That just keeps everything in the template working. So what we can do now is we can open our game, and we will begin the scenario. Okay, so you get a message like this, just warning you that the legacy event engine has been changed. Just clear the data, it doesn't matter. But once you save a game, you won't see that again. So we'll just use the Russians because they're the first tribe. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to open the cheat menu and use Control-Shift-F3 in order to open the Lua console. So at the moment we'll see a few things. Just shows you that how the events are parsed. You might get an error if your events have a mistake in them, and then it'll show you the event that has already that was the last correct event. But for now, we'll just assume that you've already tested your events and they work. And so what we're going to do is we are going to load script, navigate to our folder, our scenario folder, and go to the scripts. What we're going to do is we're going to run make object.lua. And so what that's going to do is that's going to, in Lua parameter files, this folder, it's created an object file. So this is just a generic file, and we can just delete that and we will rename this just object.lua. I prepend with just a number based on the date so that it doesn't accidentally overwrite a file in my scripts. So now when we open this, basically what this does is this file gives us names for all of our Lua objects. So we have our advances, and this basically just creates a way that when you're programming, when you're programming, it's a lot easier to deal with object A general staffs than saying, oh, what's technology 80? So we're not really going to have to bother too much with this. In fact, strictly speaking, you don't have to do this next part. But if all you want to do anyway is just create the buildability settings, just having a working file is good enough. Oh, here we go. Here we're at the units. But so something you'll notice is that some of these names that have been generated have underscores after them. That's because there was another unit with the exact same name. And so we can just leave it like this, but if we were going to do anything else with this file, we would want to just change these names to make it easier for us to work with. Now I've already checked before in this file, in the scenario, so I know that Unit 31, the infantry, is German infantry. So I'll just call it infantry German. And so their first one didn't have an underscore because this was the first time that the script saw a unit that was called infantry, so it didn't know that there was going to be another one. So it just said, oh, infantry. Then the next time it said, oh, there's already something that becomes unit infantry, so I'll just put an underscore at the end. So this way, if you want to make these sorts of changes because you're going to do other work in your scenario with actual Lua events, you can just search for underscores, and that'll tell you where you have to go and make extra information. So this will be Japanese. '51 is French. '54 is independent. '58 is British. And 59 is US. There is also a few Edwardian age wonders that are repeated. So we'll just call this the Paris one, the Berlin, and the London. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the rules of the scenario, and we're just going to temporarily change the name of units. We'll see why in a bit. We don't have to do this, but okay, so that just gives me a quick number reference for each of these units. What all this is going to do is just, when we generate our next script, our next object file, it will, use other names. So that is so 31 instead of infantry. That's German. Oh, yes. I should have made that change too. I knew that was there. So this is Russian, British, US. So I will go back here and call that Russian infantry. So we'll just save these. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to Control-Shift F3, open our console again, and load another script. And this time we're going to use make object.js.lua instead of make object. And very similar to what we did before, this time we'll go into the scripts folder, and we will delete object.js. This is just a placeholder file. And rename this to object.js. So what this does is this has created a list of our stuff in the scenario to be used for our settings. So what we can do is we can open this code generator, and here we go. So we can choose an item, and so it'll have, you know, Japanese troops and okay. Oh, that was a mistake. I forgot to reload the game. No problem. Because okay. Since I'm here anyway, if we don't make this change, then it'll just say infantry, and it'll give you the ID number so you can reference it and do it that way. But it'll be easier for this next section if we actually have our something saying, you know, German infantry or Russian infantry. So I'll just load the game. Oh, I didn't save. And now we will run the script. Oh yeah, so something I should also mention is that sometimes your script will be open to just your general Lua folder, so you'll have to navigate back to the script in your actual scenario folder. Maybe I mentioned that the last time, I don't remember. And also this will, you get a little message here saying where your file was written to, just in case it wasn't written to this folder here. So okay, so I'll refresh this. So now this time it says infantry German. And so what we can do now is we can undo all our changes. Oh. So that they're named the way we want to. And now they're all labeled just regular infantry. But even if I refresh this, we will still get infantry German in the settings here. So it's just more convenient that way. And what I should do is I should also increase the size here, just because, you know, this is a full-size display, and watching it on video might not be so convenient. Okay. So now let's actually go and do something. So let's just start off with, we will set up something for French troops. So, our first option is to choose tribes that can't build French troops. We'll actually see a reason to do this later. For now, we'll just say that we won't worry about this because you know, there are other ways to do this as well. So, but we're going to say that French troops can only be built in certain cities. So what we'll do is, instead of saying not applicable, we'll create a new list. And so this list appears over on the right-hand side. So we'll call these French home cities. And so then we can add to the list by choosing from these different drop-down menus. So cities, so Paris, that's a home city. Nantes, Bordeaux, Marseille, and then there's Strasbourg. So these are the cities that are French at the start of the game, that are in this drop-down menu. Strasbourg. And then we'll say, okay, this is good for now, so we'll stop editing the list. And if we want to edit the list again, then we press edit, and then we can make changes. If we want to remove Paris from the list, we can do that. And then we can add it back. Okay, I'm going to have to look into that, because... Okay, now it's working. I'm not sure why I couldn't just add Paris back. I should have been able to. That was weird. Anyway, so we're just going to use these French home cities, and we'll say that that's good enough for now. So we scroll down on this side, and we generate code. So the next thing we do is we go back to our scenario folder. We look in the Lua rules events. Okay, I'm not sure that really helped. And we open can build settings.lua. And so we scroll down. You want to make sure that you're after okay, that might be a bit too big. Okay, so there's this line here, local add build conditions equals such and such. So you just want to make sure you're after that. And you're also before these lines, can build functions, supply unit type parameters. So there's a gap here that will probably be there when you do this as well. And so there we are. So We save the file, load our scenario, and we'll just set ourselves as the French. So if I look here, I can build French troops in Nantes, but if I go to Algiers, French troops are not available. And so there you go. So basically you can sort of see that, you can restrict yourself to recruiting certain units in certain cities. So in this scenario, it's pretty natural to say, well, you can only recruit troops and infantry in your sort of home area, and you can't really recruit them elsewhere. Maybe you can only recruit lesser things, or lesser troops elsewhere. So the next thing we're going to do is, instead of French troops, we are going to go and look at French infantry. Infantry French, okay. And we're going to do something a little bit different this time. So we're going to use the same French home cities, but this time here we're going to use useless variable name. And so in order to do that, we press here for this list, we go to show code, and we copy this code. This is basically the list. Oh, sorry. And so what this does is that this basically means that if we want to refer to French home cities multiple times, we can just define it in one place. And so the reason that you would want to do that is so that you can change it later. So that is, let's say, for example, that I wanted to add Algiers and Oran, because France tried to make North Africa, part of France, I think, at some point. Didn't really work out as far as I know, but maybe that could be something. Or if you're the British, you do the British Home Isles, and then you say, oh, maybe I shouldn't be able to recruit in Ireland, but I probably could be able to recruit in Canada or Australia or something. So then you could so here's the things that if you have so if you do this, if you do a separate list, then you only need to change the list in one place. Whereas if you have infantry French and then French troops, and they're all individual lists like this one, then you would have to go and change every single one of these, as opposed to just being able to change it in one place. So that would be a reason why you would want to do it, make a list like that and use it separately. But in any case, let's just okay, did I do something wrong here? Oh, infantry, there it is. Okay, it was just somewhere else on the list. I was expecting it further up. Yeah, so you can then build infantry there. but you can't build them in Djibouti. So now let's consider some other kind. So what's another thing you might want to do? Well, you might want to be only able to build ships if you have a steel mill. So there's freighter. So something to keep in mind is that nothing will change here. So you're going to want to go through and make sure that everything that you don't need any longer is not applicable. On the other hand, if you want 3 or 4 units to have the same, or well, 3 or 4 anything to have the same conditions, they can just change the choose item one after the other and generate code. So here we'll generate code. Basically nothing, there are no conditions. So now we'll go and we will specify some improvements. So we'll create a new list. All improvements needed, we'll call these freighter improvements. And so you can choose improvements and you can choose wonders. If you choose a wonder, the wonder has to be in that specific town. So it's basically, if you build the wonder, you can build it in exactly one place. So wonders under this section means in that city, because they're considered improvements in this case. So we will say that we want to have a steel mill. Here we go. Add to list. It's really the only thing that we need, I guess. Actually, you know what? I mean, 1 is enough. But why don't we just say that you also need a world port. Freighter is kind of big. Yeah, so if you wanted to use wonders, then you would go down to here to the to this section where it says freighters can only be built by tribes controlling all of these wonders, or some of these wonders. So you'd use that instead. So here we will look at this. Well, first I'll give them steel. So here, Nantes cannot build a freighter. But if we give it a steel mill, then now freighter is in the list. And even if there was a steel mill with no world port, we still can't build a freighter. So next, let's choose something else. So why don't we go down to our manufactured goods. So here's what we'll do is we will say we'll create a new list. Manufactured good improvements. Oh, sorry, that's wrong. Down here. I'll show you how to create another list in just a moment. Manufactured good improvements. And so we'll say that you either have to have a factory or you have to have a light industries. Kind of makes sense. You need to have some sort of manufacturing in order to produce manufactured goods. And this number here says how many of these improvements you need. So we'll just say 1. So Algeria has neither a factory nor a light industry, and so we see manufactured goods does not appear. And if we create a factory, manufactured goods appears. Similarly, we go to Iran. Bank, light industries, and manufactured goods appears. So it's either one or the other. You can have, like 2 out of 3 if you wanted to. 2 out of 3 improvements, something like that. I mean, in principle, you could just say, well, you can't build something important until you have, 10 improvements. Who cares what they are? Just have a list of all the improvements. So in any case, something you might want to do. Okay, so here we have this new list that isn't doing anything. So we can go to edit list and do something if we want to, except that we don't actually have anything to be able to add to it. So what we can do is we can go to delete, and you can stop deletion to not delete, or you can go delete and confirm deletion. That gets rid of it. So thus far, we've been creating lists using these drop-down menus here to create a list. And that automatically selects what sort of things can be in the list. But maybe we want to create a list that has other things in it rather than something directly from here. So we can do is you can select the things that you want to have in the list. So for example, units, improvements, wonders. We want a list of things that can be built. And we'll call this we'll just call it items list. And so we'll create the list. Then we can go to edit. And so we can add, Marines, Highlanders, whatever. And so then it will appear in certain lists. So, this is a flag. This is a list of flags, which I won't worry about here because that involves actual programming to use flags, or I should say Lua flags. I don't have it linked to flags using legacy events. So you'd have to program in Lua in order to take advantage of flags. But here, so you see, even though there's a item that could have wonders, it doesn't let you drop down to select it. But there is a list. Sorry, I'll create a different list. So I'll have a list with just improvements. So now this improvements list appears as something we can select. But the items list doesn't, because it can have things in it that aren't improvements or wonders. So something else here is that this will only let you choose valid variable names. It'll be red. You'll get this red ink otherwise. So, and it'll tell you what's wrong. So this is basically telling you that you can only have letters, numbers, and underscores for the variable name, and it can't begin with a number. There we go. And so let's just make sure that you're writing valid code, high chance of having valid code. So I think this also restricts you to integers as well. Not all of them do. Not all of these do, at least at this time. So some of these boxes will let you put in stuff even if it doesn't make sense. So what should we do next? Well, maybe we'll do an agent. So I'll put this at not applicable. Okay, yep, so this is doing nothing. There is now an empty condition. And we'll say that agents need wonders. Not necessarily in a particular town, but we'll just call it 1. And we'll just call it agent wonders. And so we'll say the diplomatic corps lets you build agents. And Imperial Powers lets you build agents. And we'll just keep using the list constructor for now. And so this will be in any town that anywhere can any of your cities can have the wonders. Okay, never mind this, because the agent doesn't seem to actually be included in the game. So I don't want to deal with that. Well, that would be how you would do it. We'll just think of something else. Okay, so something you might want to do is you might want to have different conditions, multiple ways to be able to be allowed to build the unit. So we'll look at engineers. So we'll say engineers, you either need explosives and a university in the town to build engineers, or it has to be the capital. So here's how we'll do that. Oh, so okay, we're now generating blank again. So the first one, we're just going to rely on explosives. You know, the general. So the way I'll explain this in a minute. Actually, never mind now. So first of all, we'll just say we need all these improvements. What is called university. So one condition is the engineer, you need to have explosive like normal, and you need to have university in the town. The other condition is that it's your capital. Now, thus far, you would still need to have explosives in order to create the engineer, but if it's in your capital, we will say you don't need it. So what you can do is you can check this box here, which is ignore Civ2 standards requirements for building engineers. So basically, if you check this box, the game doesn't care if you have the technology, if it's a coastal city or whatever, depending on the unit. Well, it wouldn't care for engineers, but it just basically says the ordinary things that Civ2 checks for, it's not going to check for them. So if you want to have multiple conditions, so basically you just add it twice. So basically any of these conditions can be true. So if we look here, Paris can build engineers, but nowhere else can. And even though nowhere else can yet. And Paris can build engineers even if we sell the university. Engineers are still available. So now engineers can be built in Nantes because it has a university. But Algiers, which doesn't, can't build it. And so this would be a reason to use these, forbid certain tribes from building a unit, is if you want to have different conditions for different tribes. That would be a reason. So, but instead of by tribe, let's actually do that with the AI versus human. So let's say that heavy artillery. The AI isn't very good at attacking with heavy artillery, or at attacking, so we're going to give them just heavy artillery all the time. So heavy artillery for now is blank. So we're going to say that only the AI can build heavy artillery and ignore the standards. And then, everyone can just build heavy artillery if they have the technologies, for example. So that's just an empty thing, no extra conditions or restrictions. So French can't build heavy artilleries. Advanced ballistics. Now they can. However, here we can see even without advanced ballistics, the Japanese can build heavy artillery. The Germans can build it. So you might want to make different restrictions based on whether the tribe is human or AI. This would just be one reason, is that you want to make the AI more powerful, or better at attacking. So that's one thing you could do. So now let's have ourselves a look at some Dreadnought ships. So we'll do a couple of interesting things. So we'll give ourselves a list of improvements. So we will say that factory, steel mill. It makes sense you might need a railway station to sort of, bring stuff around for building it. World port, coaling station. A whole bunch of things. And we will use the list variable name for that. For this one. So another thing that you might want to do is you might want to say that certain improvements mean you can't build things. I might do that with actual improvements, but I won't need wonders. We could add an extra, so we can also add extra technologies that you might need. Don't worry about that. With Dreadnoughts, maybe you can't build it if you have a certain technology. With Dreadnoughts, that doesn't make sense. So we might say that you want to have population size 8 in order to be able to build Dreadnoughts. And we won't set a maximum population, but you could do that too. And you can also say that you can't build them before a certain turn or after a certain turn. Both Dreadnoughts, that doesn't make sense. Okay. So another thing So another thing to do, which is what I'm thinking about Dreadnoughts for, is you can have a limit to the amount each tribe can build. So what you can do is you can say, well, everyone can always build 2. And so you can set minimum and maximum limits that are going to be ignore the rest of these calculations. You can increase the limit for each turn. You can increase by cities or by population points. But we're not going to do that. And you can also increase by stuff that the tribe owns. But something else you can do is you can increase based on the amount of stuff that anyone owns. So basically, if there are, I will just create a list here. We'll see in a moment. We'll call it Dreadnought class, and Dreadnought class is going to have Dreadnoughts and where's the battle cruisers? So what we're going to do is that for each Dreadnought in the world, increase the amount of Dreadnoughts you can build by a quarter. So if there are 4 Dreadnoughts, you can build 1 more. That's owned by anyone. So basically, it's sort of say that if there's, basically, you can't just build too many because your politicians won't like that. So this could be a way of, for example, reducing America's power in the scenario. It's to say America can't just build whatever military they want because the Congress wouldn't approve. Oh, sorry. That's the wrong place. That's for population points. So we'll just leave that at 0. You can add based on non-expired wonders. And so what you can also do here is you can count other units towards this limit. So basically, in this case, Dreadnoughts consume 1 point of the unit, and battle cruisers do as well. So basically, is that everyone can have a certain number of capital ships. These can be either Dreadnoughts or battle cruisers. And so you can, if there's a lot of other people in the world building Dreadnoughts, you can build a bit more yourself. And actually, I'm going to change this one from Dreadnought class to something else. So and I'm going to add a wonder here. Arms race. So Arms race increases the amount of dreadnoughts everyone can build by 20 as their base limit. So basically, they just get into an arms race. So basically, this is if it's owned by anyone. So you get into an arms race, and you have to start building dreadnoughts, or you can. Whereas before it's like, not that many other dreadnoughts. We don't need too many. Okay, so I need the... Okay, I already have Dreadnought improvements. And now I'm going to do the same thing for battle cruisers. And I can use everything exactly the same. So now Dreadnoughts and battle cruisers. Oh, I forgot to... So even with steel mill and everything else, I can't build dreadnoughts here, because Nance isn't size 8. But Bordeaux is size 8, so it can build dreadnoughts and battle cruisers. Once you have the appropriate buildings. Same as here. So here's the thing, so if I select the Dreadnought, then, okay, what was the limit? I don't need object anymore. Okay, so you can build 2 automatically. So, build a battle cruiser. And you see, I can't build another one because there's already a Dreadnought or battle cruiser in the production queue. But if I switch it to a gunboat, then it's in the queue again. Now it doesn't. Now if you have the way this code works is that if you have extras, it doesn't force you to disband it. It just means you can't build anymore. So let's just give the British some Okay, so now in the world, there are 3 British dreadnoughts and 1 French battlecruiser. So that means that there's now the limit has increased to 2. So if I cheat, now I can't build another one because Bordeaux is. And so there you go. What we might say here is, the British firm had their 2-power standard, that they want to be, they can build a navy as big as the next 2 navies combined. We can't do that exactly, but we can do is we can say everyone except the British are not able to build Dreadnought battlecruisers under these conditions. And, for each ship built by anyone, the British can have 0.5. Now that includes ships that they already own as well, increases their limit. And so we'll get into another thing here. So you don't have to do this. You can just so one thing I can do is I can just change this to from battlecruiser to Dreadnought, and generate this exact same code again. But what I can also do is I can copy just the table constructor, this part of the code right here, for Dreadnought and battlecruiser, and I can replace this build condition right here. You don't have to worry about this if you don't want to, but this could just make it a bit easier, especially if you have a longer list of units that are all sort of bunched together. Oh, and it looks like I did something wrong. So let me pause that and figure this out. Okay, I fixed the bug, and something to say is that if you get any errors while using this code, let me know. It's not supposed to. You're not supposed to be able to generate errors when you're using the code generator here. So I'll want to fix it. Anyway, the bug that I ran into will be fixed by the time you use this yourself. So in any case, what we're doing here is we're going to give the British an alternate condition. They're going to be able to build, they're going to have a limit of being 50% of the world, plus a couple ships. So they have the base amount of 2, and then plus 5 for every other ship in the world. So at the moment, I'll set myself to the British. Steel. Dreadnoughts. Battle cruisers. So the French have a battle cruiser, British have a Dreadnought, so that's their limit of 2. And then there are already 2 Dreadnoughts in existence, so they can build one more. Oh yes, so sorry. Now they have 2 Dreadnoughts. There are 3 in existence. So they get half of that, which is another one. So that's 3, and then they get one more. So now they own 3 Dreadnoughts. They own 4 Dreadnoughts, and there are 5 in existence. So that's 2 plus 2.5 rounded down is 4. And so if the French build another one, then the British get one more as well. And so, this goes to the British. So now the British have 5, and the French thus far have 2. And so the French are limited to 4. Because they can have 25% of the total fleet. Plus 2. So there are 4. And 5 British is 9. And they have a quarter of that, which is 2 1/4. So 2 plus 2 1/4. Which is still a lot, but gives you the idea. So the British have an advantage, and as more Dreadnoughts got built, the British advantage would pull ahead, I think. But since we're here, let's give navalism so now the British get another Dreadnought. So they're capped again. And with arms race, there we go. There are all sorts of more Dreadnoughts available to be built. And I suppose I could have... and so then... and it'll work for the French too. Actually, you know what? Let's destroy all of the Dreadnoughts. And now the French can just keep building. Because there was an arms race. So I'll go back to the code builder for a second, and we'll look at this ownership limit here thing again. So if you don't include this, then, or if you don't include the unit actually being, so if we're so basically. So one is that each Dreadnought consumes one unit of calculated ownership limit for Dreadnoughts. So if this wasn't here, well, it's automatically 1. But if we didn't have this list in here at all, it would be 1. It would automatically be 1. Well, we could change it if we wanted to. It wouldn't make much sense. Actually, yes, it would. I will get to that in a minute. But so this idea here is that the battle cruisers also count towards the limit. Now let's say we want to have a different kind of limit. Let's say we've already done settlers and engineers, but we'll do it again, or laborers and engineers. So what we're going to have is we will just have a simple limit. We'll say 10. So you can have 10 laborers. But so we'll call this So we'll just call it the settlers list. So we'll add laborers. And we'll add engineers. So what we're going to do is we're going to want laborers to use up 1, but engineers to use up 2. So let's get rid of the Dreadnought improvements. Oh, and I want to get rid of that minimum population thing as well. So what we want to have is a situation where we can build 10 laborers or 5 engineers. So we'll get rid of our other engineer conditions. Two lines in Lua's to comment out. 2 dashes, I should say. And that makes everything else ignored on that line. And you know what we're going to do? Just to make it easy, we're going to ignore the requirements for building engineers. Okay, we're going to use the Japanese for this since I don't think they have very many laborers and engineers. Okay, so they don't have any, that's good. So, the way this code works is that I want engineers to take up 2 units, whereas settlers take up 1. So what I can do is I can use the same base limit of 10 here, but just say that engineers take up 2. So see, I can build 5 engineers. And that's it. See, so this is 6, 7, 8, 9. The engineer has disappeared. Option has disappeared, but I can build another settler. Okay. So that would be why you would want to change the limit here, just to be easier to work with. And then you can also use the same thing. You know, in this case, you can use the same parameter list for both the settlers and the engineers. Okay. So there's another important thing. Well, since I am still on the topic of limiting production, you can also have a global limit for something. So all the tribes together can only do a certain amount. It's hard to think of something that would be relevant. Maybe if you're hiring mercenaries, once you start building the mercenary, someone else can't, or maybe you have a situation where say that's the Renaissance. There are only like 3 or 4 really good artists who are building your wonders for you, or who can build your wonders. So you hire someone to start the wonder, then they can't be hired by someone else to build a wonder. So you could have something like that, I guess. But so we're going to go and look at something else. So we'll look at Marines. Not applicable. Okay, so Marines cannot be built in cities which are allowed to build any of these items. And Marines can only be built in cities which can also build at least one of these items. So what we'll do is we'll say that you can only build Marines in the same cities that you can build your national troop units for your own tribe. And it'll just be easier to define them. So, say you define independent troops. Okay. So there are these national units, that we'll call them. And so what we want to do is we want to say you can only build Marines in the same cities that your tribe can build, their regular infantry and troops. So we'll say Marines can only be built in cities which can also build, at least one of these items. Oh, there's some other unlimited production. So we'll just use the list generator, the list constructor here instead of a separate list. Probably not the best idea, but whatever. I mean, it won't hurt anything. It's just that if I wanted to add something to the troop list, I would have, I'd have to do it in multiple places if I use this more than once. Okay, so here I can build Marines as France, but I can't build them here because I can't build French troops in that city. So I can build British troops here and Marines. So I'm going to have to actually, to show this off properly, I'm going to have to actually limit where the British can build their troops. Oh, gotta get rid of the So the French can build Marines there. Okay, so that's a British city. And the British can't build Marines here. Because they can't, they can't recruit British Marines in France, or British troops in France. And similarly, I didn't let them recruit in Dublin. And so by the same token, you can set it up so that you can only, you can have it so that units can only be built in cities where other units can't be built. So colonial troops seems like a reasonable thing to do that, so. Yeah, so colonial troops cannot be built in cities which are allowed to build any of these items. And we'll use the same national units list. Okay. Okay, so colonial troops don't appear here, but they do appear in Algiers, for example. Okay, so something that you should be aware of is that this might not play well with limits of production. Where is that? So we will use French troops again, and we will limit them to 10. Oh, I don't need forbidden alternate production for those. That also wouldn't play well. But that would be a serious problem, not just a weird problem, which we'll see in a moment. Okay, so we have to go and first of all comment out or get rid of our other French troops condition, because otherwise it'll say, look, you you can build French troops in any of these places, and that'll be true. That'll be true, so they'll be able to be built, even though here we'll have that extra. We have the extra limit. Oh, and why do I still have joint max? I'll just get rid of that. So yeah, that's one thing to do. Yeah, I might just add a button to this thing at some point to just clear everything off, because this is getting a bit annoying. Oh, and of course see, when I don't use when I don't cut and paste and try to do it myself, it creates problems. There we go. Oh, right, French infantry. So, oh geez, let's remove nationalism. See, since there are more than 10 French troops can no longer be built in Bordeaux, and so colonial troops are available. So if you're going to want to have those kinds of limits on, forbidden alternate production troops or units, that's fine. You just have to be aware of this, and if not, you'll have to create some more complicated system to check. But forbidden alternate production sort of means that you don't have to go and create individual conditions for each tribe that are slightly different, or just it might be easier to define it that way anyway, even if you could do it some other way fairly easily. Well, I think that covers, most things they can do. and this video is getting kind of long, so so you can also, so there's the coastal can build ships and can build hydro plant flags that towns have. You can require them to be present. This could be particularly useful if you're using the ignore the standard requirements for building items. So I think I mentioned that there's first and last turn available. We didn't test that out, but pretty obvious what to do. So the Lua template has flags, which you can use or not, which you can use if you're using Lua Events, and so this is just the way to check those flags. If you come across it because you're using flags in your events, then you can figure it out or ask me in the forums. But this video's been kind of long, and I think this covers basically everything. You can play around with the code generator if you need to anyway, and see how things work. Thank you, and have a good night, or good day, or whatever it is.